So in this video, I'm going
Talk, talk, talk. Okay, beautiful. Cool. So, introduction time. I really like the game Ultima 1, but guess what? Ultima 1 is from the dang Stone Age, computer-wise, right? It was written in 1981. It is currently 2024, so that's like over 40 years. Like most of you watching this, probably, including me, I'm not 40 years old. I think you can probably tell. Um, Most of you watching this probably were not born when Ultima 1 was written. So what I'm trying to do is take sort of my favorite parts of Ultima 1 and put them in a more modern package. So um, a couple of those include my favorite parts of Ultima 1, and I've played all the other Ultima games and they didn't replicate this. One, um, you don't really have a max health bound, right? Right. So basically, what happens is you can go to the king, you can pay him some money, and he'll give you health. So if you have, so if you pay him 100 money, he'll make your health 150. He'll add 150 to your health. You can do this as many times as you want, and then if you go into a dungeon, here's a dungeon, I guess, right? If you go into a dungeon and you kill a couple monsters and you go back out, then you'll get health that way as well. And there's no upper bound, or if there is an upper bound, I haven't found it. It's very high, so you can get just like, where's my huh? Okay, I can't find my layer thing. Anyway, you can just get like a huge bucket of health, and that's fun. The other thing is that the towns are small and simple, so you can go in, grab what you need, and leave. Um, it's fast, convenient, it works well, and the story is not terribly complicated. I'm probably gonna have a little bit more story than the original Ultima, but like all of those things together make it very much so like it's not quite an arcade experience, right? Like it's not something that you can play in 3 to 5 minutes at an arcade. Like you're not going to put quarters in there or anything. But it has a lot of the same design principles, so it's pretty fast and easy to learn, right? It's fast and easy to learn. There's not a ton of complexity, and the complexity that is there, um, it adds to the experience, I would say. And like, if you want to upgrade your weapon, there's only like 6 weapons, and so it's a pretty linear path, right? Magic doesn't really work, but who cares? It's not a big deal, right? Anyway, um, one of the big, where are my layers? View, gosh, arrange. No, okay. I don't know what happened. Oh no, I think I didn't intentionally got rid of it. Like I pressed the X button. Anyway, I would like to make a new layer, but I can't. Control N maybe? No, that's whatever. I'll just make a new. Um, and so this sort of arcadey like vibe means that you're spending most of your time in the dungeon. And the way that the original game generated it was basically there's a grid, and at certain squares, it sort of chooses a random thing. So it can be a door, it can be a wall, it can be a secret door, and so on. Um, and this is a very coarse way to do it that winds up with, but between that and the movement system, which makes you turn around a lot, so you can get very lost very quickly. So like a modern dungeon crawler uses WASD, so you can move forward, back, left, right? And it's relative to your camera angle. So if I'm here and I'm looking this way and I press W, I go this way, right? If I press A, right, so that's this one, I go this way. And then if I turn and now I'm facing this way, I go forward, I go left, right? What Ultima does is it sort of, if you press a directional button while you're facing a wall, I think you have to press. So if I'm facing this wall and I press back, then I turn around. But if I'm not facing a wall, if I'm further away from a wall and I press back, I go backwards. And this is kind of confusing. So basically, that's the gist of what I want, and so I want a slightly more sophisticated. I want a slightly more sophisticated dungeon crawling system, and this tutorial that I'm trying to follow here is actually probably overkill. I probably don't need anything half this complicated, but I do need something. And I'm also not sure entirely if I want to make the dungeons procedural or not. I kind of like having direct control over what the experience is like, but understanding how procedural dungeons work is a good idea whether or not you're actually using the technology. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm making this video. And I'm not just going to follow the tutorial. I'm also going to share my thoughts on what I think it's missing, what the experience of watching the tutorial is, because I think that this is a major weakness of sort of tutorial content in general, where you have the tutorial maker, right? And you have the tutorial like watcher, right? And so the idea is this person knows a bunch of stuff, this person knows less stuff, and this person's transferring the knowledge here. But here's the thing, because this person doesn't know very much, they're not going to be able to spot if something is wrong. And so you kind of need some sort of oversight. You need a third party to say, hey, that's wrong. And that's what I'm trying to be here. And I don't know if this tutorial has major issues or not. It might not. It might just be more like, right, Control Shift Z. It might just be more like there's like 6 ways of doing something, and I prefer way 1 and they prefer way 3, but they're both equally valid. Or it might just be like that this person is going sort of in a different direction than I want to go with my project, and so we start, and so like the further you get, the more you diverge. Who knows? I haven't watched the video, but I think that sort of content is important, especially when for game dev, which is really reliant in tutorials. You need, like, it's really hard to just like open the engine and say, oh, I get it, right? And I think that's more true of a game engine than pretty much any other digital tool. Like if we open Godot here, there's just a bunch of crap all over the place. And Godot is a very well organized game engine. Like this is good, but like let's just I make a 2D scene, and then I make like, I don't know, character 3D, right? Provide 2D. And now it's like, okay, what is all this stuff? Collision. I've got collision layers. What's a collision layer? Let's just put it on everything. I don't know. If you want to be the most layered collision, or I don't know what a mask is. Masks are confusing. The input pickable. What does that mean, right? Transform, and when if I'm a new if I'm a new game dev and I hear transform, I'm thinking about the toys that turn from like trucks into robots, right? Let's just draw a big robot now. Got a big robot sword. Gonna fight the Decepticons. What does that have to do with, anything? Visibility this is kind of confusing. What's modulate? Yeah, like you have to learn a dozen different new vocabulary words just for this one panel, and then if we add like a control node and container, right? And now it's a whole different random hodgepodge of terms you need to learn. It's the same modulate thing. Why does what's a light mask, right? And so basically, when you have a tutorial, what the tutorial says is what the tutorial allows you to do is here's this like huge giant box of crap because the game engine wants to help all games, right? And so there's 3D, there's 2D, there's UI, there's like Godot has this really big like translation package. And there's just a bunch of other stuff. Just stuff everywhere. But what you want a specific little slice of it. And so, or let's say the slice is like this, right? You just need this percentage of this big box, but you're never gonna find this percentage on your own. You need someone to guide you of just like here's how to cut this part of the engine out and how to use it. Right. And there's exceptions. There's people who read the documentation. There's people who are like, okay, well, I know how programming works, and therefore I know how Godot works because Godot is programming. And I'm just gonna read the docs. And I'm gonna like learn that way. But reading documentation is a surprisingly difficult skill to learn. Like I read the documentation all the time, and I often don't find what I need because I'm thinking like, okay, I have this object, I have this class on it. This method I know this object has, but I just need a code example. Or like I can't remember if it's supposed to be like, we have a string or something. Let's say we have an array, which is just a bunch of different items, right? You got a bunch of items in here, and I can never remember if it's supposed to be shuffle blank or if it's right like blank dot shuffle. And the way it's written in the documentation often doesn't clarify this. It just says the name of says the name of the thing, and then you have to find like someone on the forum who's actually posted their code. But the only reason you'd post your code is because your code is wrong. And so you've got someone who's like, here's my code, here's what I want it, here's what I want it to do. I want to make a circle, but it actually makes a square. And then someone else is like, okay, well, line 3 is wrong. Like, okay. And then you, as this observer, is like, okay, line 3 is wrong. I can do this. And then you realize this is for Godot 3.4, and you're doing Godot 4.3. So this is completely useless to you, or it's sort of useless. You have to use, right? And tutorials solve all of those problems. They say, I know more than you. I know the path from here to here that will let you build the game you want to make. And so they're very, very useful. But what if this path is wrong? What if the game you want to make is actually like this part of the engine, and going this way instead causes a bunch of problems that you, as a person who doesn't know very much, right? Because where is it? Yeah. So you, as a person who doesn't know very much, this is your knowledge base. This is the tutorial maker's knowledge base. You have no idea. And so if you take this more difficult path rather than this easier path, and then you try to build stuff on top of that, it's just going to break. It's just going to break down, and you will have no idea how to fix it. And so it's important for tutorials to be correct. And actually, this tutorial...
To try my best to teach you how I made this dungeon generator in Godot 4. So as you can see on the right hand side...
Where's the I remember there being a disclaimer. It might be right at the start.
So in this video, I'm going to try my best to teach you how I made this other node and create the dungeon based on it. The whole project is up on GitHub, so if that's something that interests you, read this text and continue.
Here we go. Yeah, so here's a disclaimer. Not a professional. Method shown in this video were for me, but might not be correct. Right. Most tutorials don't even have this. Um, but yeah, so this is a good sign. This is something I really like to see from a tutorial. Hey, I might be wrong, right? And also tutorials constantly go out of date. Right, Godot is constantly tweaking things, and so it turns out that if you have all of these features and this feature right here is broken or doesn't work or works in an inefficient way, often what you have to do is get rid of it and replace it. Then if I've made a tutorial based on, even if I've made a tutorial like, this doesn't work. Here's my solution, right, for 4.1, and then in 4.3 they're like, okay, well actually we fixed this. It's just like better now, so you don't need a sort of a side solution. And it turns out this solution has its own problems with it. Or that's a perfect example of how something can go out of date, or the syntax might change. It might be like, rather than cast shadow, it might be overlay shadow now, because it turns out that casting a shadow like that, right, it just like, this is the sort of thing that happens all the time. And so for tutorial to say there might be issues, it doesn't really address the sort of the future proofing, but Godot commenters generally tell you in the comments like if there's anything that's broken. I think this is actually a correction here. Yeah, anyway, let's get into the tutorial. Let's get into the tutorial proper. I got a sec. Yeah, let's get into the tutorial proper. And yeah, so yeah, we're gonna watch the full intro now.
So in this video, I'm going to try my best to teach you how I made this dungeon generator in Godot 4. So as you can see on the right hand side, you get a lot of control over the generation. You can set things like the room size, the grid size, the seed, and a lot of more things to give you different looking layouts. And once you find the layout you're happy with, you can go to this other node and create the dungeon based on it. The whole project is up on GitHub, so if that's something that interests you,
Wait.
Based on it. The whole project is up on GitHub, so if that's something.
Okay, so is there no, there's not missing geometry. It's just a very thin. Okay.
Read this text and continue watching. Alright, so we have a blank project.
Okay, so we do not have a blank project. I had a bunch of stuff that was delete that. Yeah. So we want a 3D scene, I assume.
Open in front of us. And over here, let's create a new 3D scene and rename it to dungeon. And now go ahead and add in a new grid map.
Okay. Dungeon grid map. Right. Wait, it's just no 3D? Yeah, okay. Okay, cool. I didn't even know that function existed.
And we're going to use this to sort of create our map layout. You'll see later. For now, just notice how this grid map node requires a mesh library to work with. And currently we don't have any of those, so we're going to create one right now. So let's...
Okay. Create one right now. So new scene.
Let's make a new 3D scene and rename it to dungeon tiles. Then give it a new mesh instance.
Okay, 3D scene dungeon tiles.
Then 3D node and rename this one to room tile. Like.
Okay.
So, then under the mesh property, let's make this a new box mesh.
Okay, That's pretty straightforward. Box mesh, mesh, box mesh. There we go. Boom. Okay.
And now to quickly explain, we're gonna make our rooms in meters, so we're gonna need this cube to be 1 meter in size also. Which I believe it already, yeah it is, so change nothing there. Instead, under surface material override, create a new standard material 3.
Okay, so standard material 3D. So what that does is, okay. What that does is, so we can check, for example, I can change the albedo. You can see if I change it to this pink color, it changes the base color. Transparency, I can make that alpha, and I can change okay, wait, can I make the color? I can make the color, yeah, so you can make it transparent. Yeah, a bunch of stuff here. Guess, okay, so albedo.
And under albedo, change it
Yep.
to whatever color you like. I'm just going to leave it as white for now. Then duplicate this node a bunch of times.
Okay, you didn't actually tell me the keyboard shortcut, so that's the first note here. Keyboard shortcut. So it's Control D. Oh. Control, yeah, come on. Yeah, Control D, and then you can grab that. Is there a way to, whatever. Duplicate that a bunch of times. Okay.
3 to be exact, so we have 4.
Okay.
And start renaming them.
I only need 4, so bye bye to cube number 5. Start renaming them. Okay.
So apart from the room tile, we're gonna need a hallway tile and a door tile, as well as a border.
Yes. Okay, this is very exciting. I'm really happy about this. So I have a big problem with tutorials that don't show you how to make your own assets. Because basically your assets are, so an asset is basically anything that's not code. So music, graphics, etc. Right? So for example, a 3D model such as this cube would be an asset. And a lot of tutorials say, hey, here's this box of assets that I've provided for you. Just put them in your engine. And I think this is a bad approach, because making your own assets is the only way you're going to make a quality, memorable game. There's no way around it. And there's a couple things, there's a couple sort of notes on that. So for example, I think Duck, what was it? Untitled Goose Game. Like, they made the duck, and they made all the villagers. Can't draw a duck. But they didn't necessarily make every single building. Like, some of the buildings were assets, from the asset store, but the duck they made, right? And there's certain times where it's like, okay, well, I could spend an hour modeling a table, or I could spend 10 minutes, right? Especially if that table is not very important. I could spend 10 minutes just like finding one. But there's always a trade-off, right? So it's like quality and time, but also, skill, right? So if your skill at modeling is very low, then you're going to get higher quality if you use someone else's assets. But this also means that your skill over here is never going to go up. and you're also beholden to whatever assets already exist, and also money, right? So if you have money, you can replace your own skill with someone else's and get good assets, or you can increase your own skill. But like, no matter what you're doing, if you're not making your own assets, then you are either paying money or sort of sacrificing quality. I can't spell. Okay, well, that's not how you spell quality, but you're either paying money, sacrificing quality, or both every time you put anything in your game. And so you can wind up with just really bad games that because they've made this trade-off so many times. And so when I see someone who's like, okay, well, I'm not just going to teach you how to take assets out of this box and put it into your game engine, into this other box. I'm going to say, okay, well, let's build them from parts. Right, let's make the, I don't know, here's a table. Let's make that table, and then at a later point, you can decide, okay, well, is the time for making the table worth it? Should I just like go buy one? Where does it work for me? So that, because if you just say, okay, here's a box of assets, put them in your engine, then that you're not teaching this muscle of, I, as a developer, need to how do I describe this? You're not, so the you can either make assets or get assets, right? And both are valid choices. Pretty much every game does both. Every large published game does both. But it needs to be a decision. If you're always getting the assets, if you can only do this, then your game's gonna be bad. There's pretty much no way around it. There's just, your game's gonna be bad. Because you don't have control, and you don't have decision make, right? You can't decide. You don't just have control. This is also why AI is bad, because you can say, hey AI, do whatever, and then either it does or it doesn't. But you can't, if it doesn't, you can't force it to, and if it does and you don't like the quality, you just have to start over. It's like right, it's just a total crapshoot. It may or may not do the thing. If it does the thing, it might not do it well. And it's the same thing here, where this is also limited by your ability to find stuff. So if you're a newbie developer, you probably don't know where to find stuff. And so what you're going to find is going to be like sort of not necessarily of the best quality. Especially if you're like sort of, here's the graph of like quality and time spent searching, right? Or how about just like quality and money? So things that are free going to be on the lower end of the quality spectrum most of the time. Okay, this is a bad, I'm explaining this poorly. Anyway, the upshot of all of this, let me just make the eraser real big and erase all of this. The upshot of all of this is making your own assets from, if not from scratch, from little pieces to make the big thing you want, and then putting that in your game. This is much better than going on the internet and Googling the asset and finding it and then just putting it directly in your game. Because you have much more control over this step, and you have much more, if not quality, at least consistency. I think that you pretty much always would rather have a bad looking game that's like consistent, that's entirely consistent, than a game that sometimes looks good. Because then like the really nice shiny assets, whoa, this is so cool, make the turds look worse. It's stinky. So if you only have this, hell yeah, good job, you made a good game. If you only have this, then at least it's sort of consistent. It's interesting. It looks unique. But if you have a mix, it just looks bad. Um, maybe turds was a bad word to use there. I don't know. There's a certain aesthetic cohesion to a collection of ugly object or like poorly, it's just MS Paint. Sort of what do you call it? MS Paint diagrams. That's a good example. Yeah, like no one is gonna argue this looks incredible. It looks basic. It looks fine. Whatever, but it's a good starting point for a game. If you make your entire game look like this, then that game has something to say. It has a a point of view. It has an art style. But if you take this piece of art and you put it next to yeah, if this is your level and this is your gun, then something's wrong. That looks bad. And if your game looks entirely like this, then that's good. If these guns look good, the game will look good because this is a good aesthetic. But you can't mix them. You can't mix and match. It just doesn't work. Um, I think there might be some sort of like um way that you could make it work in the sort of an ironic sense or whatever, but it just doesn't work if you mix really low quality stuff with really high quality stuff. And that's what this sort of reliance on assets winds up creating, especially because the person where's my mouse? Huh. The person using the assets doesn't understand the quality difference because they've never had to do it themselves. Um anyway, that was a long ass rant. Let's pull up OBS again. Yeah, so we have our 4 cubes and we're renaming them to room, hallway, door, and border. Okay. Hallway and border.
Tile. So now all of our tiles kind of look the same, which isn't really good. So select the hallway tile and under the material override, make the material unique first, and then
Okay. So hallway, material, where's make unique? Where's the
under albedo change.
wait? Okay.
I'm just going to leave it as white for now. And under the material override, make the material unique first.
Okay, so it's part of that menu. Got it. Make unique. Great.
And then under albedo, change it to a custom color. I'm just gonna make my hallways blue.
Okay, so pink. Albedo. Let's make this. Oh, I said make unique. Whoops. Okay, so if I change this albedo, why do they all change? I literally just made you unique. I'll make unique. If I change, they should not all be changing. What's going on? Okay, let me rewind this here.
a door tile, as well as a border tile. So now all of our tiles kind of look the same, which isn't really good. So select the hallway tile and under the material override, make the material unique first.
Okay, so let's see. I'm just gonna, right? Mr. Material, make unique. Albedo. Why are all four of them changing? What's going on here? So make unique is currently bugged, I guess. I'm gonna make the whole. Make the whole box unique. Attach code for rename found. Okay, parent. Like this is a unique name. Okay, so now if I change the material. Nope. They all change. They all change. Hallway tile. Clear. Okay. Use material. Save. Okay, so let's call that room material. Great, and then we go to hallway tile, exterior material, save as hall material. And now if I update this one, they should not all update. And they do, okay. Wait, let me just... Why do they all update? Material. Load. Room material. Okay, so room material. Hallway. Load hall material. Great. So these have these two things have different materials. So if I change this one, what is wrong with you guys? Okay, so do I have to? I can't duplicate them. I can't. Right. So I just gotta start over. Okay. So mesh instance 3. I just gotta make 3 more mesh instances. Show node mesh instance. And this is a perfect example of tutorials might just not work. And I don't know if this bug was introduced with an update or if it's always been this way or what. Okay, well, it seems like it's been an issue for a while now. Okay, so if I just make, so it was room, hall, door, border. Okay. Great. Now, oop. Okay, so these now have different materials. Same here, box mesh, border tile, box mesh, great. And now if I change hall, material, same material, albedo. Yeah, okay, so none of the other ones change. Hopefully it doesn't break anything later. We shall see.
So now all of our tiles kind of look the same, which isn't really good. So select the hallway tile and under the material override, make the material unique first, and then under albedo change it to a custom color.
Okay, let me just. Okay, I couldn't get that to work.
Blue. And then same deal here, make the material unique, and I'm gonna make the doors yellow. And lastly, make unique, and the borders are naturally going to be red.
Okay, so white, blue, yellow, red. Oh, I see. Okay, white, blue. Bum, bum, bum. Yellow, great. Red. Okay.
So now you're good to save this scene into a new folder, call this dungeon generation, and
Okay. So scene, save scene as. Wait, is it? Yeah.
click save.
Okay, so in a folder. Folder. Scene, save scene as. There we go.
And now we are going to export the mesh library out of this scene. So for that, go under scene, export as.
Okay. Scene, export as mesh library. What do we call it?
Mesh library, and save this into the same folder you just created, and click save.
Okay, so just whatever it gives me. Great. Wait, what do you name it? Just so I can.
Going to be red. So now you're good to save this scene into a new folder, call this dungeon generation, and click save. And now we are going to export the mesh library out of this scene. So for that, go under scene, export as mesh library.
Okay, dungeon tiles. Okay.
And save this into the same folder you just created, and click save. Now you can close out of this scene and simply drag and drop the newly created mesh library resource to the mesh library socket.
Okay, cool. So dungeon generation, mesh tiles. There we go. Okay, so this is super cool and super useful. I'm glad that I got to play around with that. Like people told me about it. Okay, so let's keep going.
Now as you can see, we can start drawing with the tiles. Except for whatever reason the default cell size in Godot is set to 2, whereas I think 1 by 1 by 1 makes slightly bit more sense.
Okay. Cell size, it's still, yep, that's still 2 by 2 by 2. Okay, there we go. So I can door tile. Okay, hall tile, room tile. So actually, creating mesh libraries in Godot is actually super easy. Nice. I assume we're gonna need to add collision at some point. I feel like I could just like make pixel art right like this, like just that actually sounds kind of fun. Just make just make voxels and make pixel art based on them. Yeah. Where's my video?
And also make sure to uncheck the center Y checkbox so it snaps to the grid perfectly. Oh, and let's not forget to save this scene also into the same.
Oh, what center Y? Looks like they fixed that. Looks like that's fine. Right. Yeah, looks like they
Same folder.
scene, save scene, dungeon, great. Okay. Yeah, this is a really well-made tutorial.
We are done. Okay, so before continuing any further, I'm just very quickly going to explain the act.
Yes. I love it when they explain not just exactly what you should do, but why we're doing it. Okay, great. So, oh gosh, I want to go on a quick detour here. Delani train. Oh, this is all super complicated looking. No, I want to go on a quick detour here. Where's my downloads folder? I'm just gonna browse this on my other monitor real quick. So here, this is. Here, come on. Okay, so. Great. So this is for Enter the Gungeon. You can see here, this is all the different shapes a dungeon can be. And this is for the first floor. There's 6 for the first floor. There's different numbers for different floors. But you can see that there's basically only 6 possible layouts. So a normal room is a room. A normal room is a room with an encounter, so enemies in it. And then yeah, normal connector normal. So there's no actual room. Yeah, so like there's at a very high level. These 6 rooms for the first floor of Enter the Gungeon, which is a procedurally generated roguelike. These 6 rooms are these 6 layouts are the only possible layouts. And so what happens is this room's always the same. This room's always the same, but in between those rooms, this is a random room is chosen here, a random room is chosen here. I actually don't know how hubs work. A random room is chosen here, a random room is chosen here. This is going to be a chest room. Where's the other room? Yeah, this is going to be a chest room. This is gonna be a shop room, and so you can see how even so there's 6 layouts to choose from, and each room can be random from chosen from a random number of a large number of random bits. So there's a very low, and the same room is not going to appear twice either. So there's a very low chance that any 2 floors will ever look the same, but they'll all have this similar like layout at a very high level, even if the rooms are different sizes and shapes. And so when we talk about randomly generating a dungeon, often we sort of conflate. Please work. We sort of conflate 2 parts. We conflate the. So we think it's actually 1 step when it's 2, right? So it's actually 2 steps. So the first step is sort of make a map of all the things you want to have and connect them. So it should be connected, let's say this way, right? This is the map we want to make. And then you take, say, this bit, and you choose from a big long list of valid choices. You slot one in here, you slot one in here, etc. for the rest of the map. And then you just like check. So step 1 is making this high level map. And so let's say this needs to be a type A, this needs to be a type B, this needs to be a type Q. This one's a quest item, so it needs to have these 3 things or it's not going to work. And then so that's the first step, and then step 2 is actually filling it out with realistic items. So let's say we choose room 20 variant 23 here, we choose variant 104 here. This is the quest room, so it's always the same. Right, so that's the basic process. And what's going on here is we're combining those. So we're not making a high level map and then slotting things in. We're just making room connection, room connection, room connection. And this winds up with either boring or unbalanced encounters that are not like, doesn't feel like they have a designer's hands personally on them. And that's why Enter the Gungeon, despite being randomly generated at a low level, like there's random code happening, you don't actually have to test every combination of every floor, every combination of every room. You don't have to test every combination of every room to know if it works or not, because this layout, I'm sure it was tested a bunch. This layout was tested a bunch. And so you can know that everything is basically a good design, even if you can't actually test all the combinations. And so what this is doing is, this is actually really interesting. I like how this is built, where it's actually I should start listening to some music. Mario Party 3 remix. But actually, it might be a copyright. Copyright free vibes. Okay, here we go. Music time. Okay, we're gonna turn this video down. There we go. So we can definitely hear the actual video.
Actual algorithm we'll use in this video. So as you can see in this little diagram thing I made, we are at first going to spawn a bunch of randomly sized rooms in random locations, all within a certain border. So this basically means the number of rooms, the minimum and maximum size of those rooms, as well as the border size are all going to be predefined by us from code. Then moving on to the next step, we are going to take the positions of those rooms and create what's called a Delaunay triangulation with them. And the Delaunay triangulation is basically the simplest way you can draw triangles, given a bunch of points, in a way that none of those points will remain in the circumcircle of any of the triangles you draw. And you understand I just did a terrible job explaining that, but you can do your own research if you feel so inclined to. Which really won't matter anyway, because we're not going to implement the algorithm to get the triangulation ourselves. We are just going to use one of Godot's inbuilt classes for that. Then we are going to find a minimum spanning tree within that triangulation. And this is the shortest way you can connect those points, such that you can travel between any two given points at any time. And lastly, we're going to create our hallways
Wait.
with the triangles we draw. And I understand I just did a terrible job explaining that, but you can do your own research if you feel so inclined to. Which really won't matter anyway, because we're not going to implement the algorithm to get the triangulation ourselves. We are just going to use one of Godot's inbuilt classes for that. Then we are going to find a minimum spanning tree within that triangulation.
Okay, so this is interesting. Wait, actually, let me check the. So, actually, let me look up Delaunay triangulation. Okay, I don't fully understand this. Okay, so I want to know the because we're not using Delaunay triangulation directly, we're using like a version of it. So you can see that there's five things in the tree, and the longest route is 2 steps. And if we take the example here from Enter the Gungeon, we can see that the longest route is much longer than so if I'm here and I want to go here, it's 1 step, 2 step, 3 steps. Right, so if I'm here and I want to go here, it's 4 steps, right? Or 5 even here. And so we don't actually necessarily want the maximally efficient traversal. It's perfectly possible that we intentionally want to add an inefficiency, but they've only given me a shortest triangulation. I can't find any examples of line triangulation the way this person's using it. Okay, so yeah, I would like to know the behavior on larger sets of meshes where, like, does it actually make all routes maximally efficient or not? Because yeah, I think I'm heavily referencing Enter the Gungeon here, but because it's a good game. Now, actually, I I believe there actually is a path here, but it's a one way. So what you happens is you go here, you go here. Actually, no, you have to start here. So you go here, and you can go through and get this reward. But if you want to go to the hub, you have to go. I'll come back to that.
And this is the shortest way you can connect those points such that you can travel between any two given points at any time.
So the guarantee is you can travel from any room to any room, and that. Okay, so like for example, secret rooms. That's a good example of something you maybe don't want perfectly efficient. Right. So for example, let's say I have a simple layout of maybe these rooms, right? And these three all connect, so you can get from point A to point B to point C and back again because there's rooms here. But you can't get here because it's a secret room, right? Now there is a tunnel from say C to S, right? But it has to be. I guess that's still sort of a special case. So there's still, like, you just have to like lock this, and then you still can get from anything to anywhere else, from any one place to any other place. I guess this is sort of the solved version of the dungeon, right? Actually, let's do a quick run of Enter the Gungeon just for reference. Hopefully the vibes music and the Enter the Gungeon soundtrack don't mix too poorly. I'm not actually going to kill the boss. I'm just going to sort of go through this quickly to show off what I mean by this solved state. If I can aim. Ow. Dang it. Right, so we can see, oops. Okay. So these do mix poorly. One sec. Ow. Oops. Okay, so here's an example. That door is locked. You can only access it from the other direction. So when we clear this room, okay, well that's not I guess the route is this way. It'd be very embarrassing to die here. Alright, let's see. Key, ammo, nice. Okay, so I guess there's one more room, and then we get to the shop. Okay, so here's the shop. Great. Buy some health. Oh, I should have brought the meat bun. Oops. Okay, so here's the boss. And then have we found the fireplace yet? I'm not sure. Okay, so this is a fireplace, got it. Okay, and we gotta be careful not to... There we go. Okay, so now... Okay, so this is the dungeon in its solved state. And so you can see, yeah, you can get from everywhere to everywhere. But it's only, you can only do that once you've solved it, like once you've visited everything. And so now this tunnel is good, right? So now you can go over anywhere you want. Just gonna put that on pause for now. Turn the music back on. Okay, minimum spanning tree is part of that. So that's an interesting question though. Will this tutorial deal with locking? Oh, actually, for bonus points. Okay, we started here. So one exit. Okay, so it's okay. One exit, 3 exits. Okay, so let's see what flow that is. Okay. Wait, no, one. Okay, we start here. 1, yeah, 1, 4. Okay. Okay, yeah. So it's flow 4. Okay, so we got 1, and then 4 exits. So 1 backwards and 3 forwards. So yeah, there's only 6 flows for the first floor. There's only 6 possible combinations. Well, combination is a strong word, but there's only 6 possible high-level overviews of what the dungeon will look like. And today we found number 4. Anyway,
And lastly, we're going to create our hallways based on the minimum spanning tree. However, if we were to use only the minimum spanning tree, it would result in a linear layout with few deviations from a straight path, which I imagine isn't really that desirable for a dungeon. So what we want to do instead is to randomly add some of the Delaunay edges back into our minimum spanning tree. At which point, I guess, you can't really call it the minimum spanning tree anymore. But the point is, this way we're gonna have more complex and interesting looking layouts with loops and cycles, which is exactly what we want for a dungeon.
Why did you deep fry this? Okay, yeah, so they're covering basically exactly the same things I'm covering. This is a really well-researched video so far.
We are going to create a new script for our dungeon scene. So select the root node and press the attach script button, and we're going to save this script into the same folder we created for our dungeon tiles and stuff.
Action. 1 sec. Boom. Boom. Okay, I'm going to be right. I'm going to go do a BRB. Sure, that'll do. And yeah, then we're gonna get back into it. I need some food. Oh, my back. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, and we are back. I should turn my BRB thing off.
And also make sure that you have the, what is it called? Empty script template selected, otherwise it's going to kind of populate our script with unnecessary bullshit we don't need yet. So click create, and now we can start coding.
I'm gonna just let this section play and then follow it up.
So the first thing we want to do is to add the tool keyword on top of our script. And this just basically lets us run the code in the editor.
Oh, actually, one more thing. I'm gonna make some drink mix.
Than having to run the game every time we make a small change. Just makes everything easier. But before we can see its effect, we have to first close and reopen the scene we are currently working on. Now let's make a new export variable and call it start. This is of type bool, and let's default it to false. We are also going to create a setter function.
What is it, kitty cat? Okay. Got a little kitty cat keeping me company. The camera's too high, so you probably can't see her, but she's here.
Function for this variable. So set equals to set start. Currently this function doesn't exist, so we're going to define it right underneath it. So func set start value of type bool, and this is not going to return anything. Then simply just set start to the given value. So to understand what we're doing here, because this is an export variable, we can access it through the inspector. And every time we change its value, Godot is going to call the setter function. And what's so cool about this is that the setter function can also do other things that are not setting the variable to a new value. In fact, we can exclude this line altogether, and by doing so, whenever we toggle it from the editor, the value won't change, but it will perform everything else, practically turning it into an in-editor button. So in our case, we are going to generate the actual dungeon whenever we toggle this value. So I'm just going to write generate here and very quickly define the function for it so it doesn't throw an error at me. And for now, just simply print generating. And now if we toggle its value from the editor, it will just run the generate function for us. And similarly, we are going to create another export variable. So export var border size of type int, and let's default it to 20. And this variable is also going to have a setter function. So let's define that underneath it. And set border size to the given value. So now we want a live visualization of our border whenever the border size value is altered. So this time we actually do want to set the variable to its newly given size. And after that we are going to visualize the border and like before define the function below it. One thing to note is that in the visualize border function, we're going to be using a reference to our grid map node, which will be initialized on the game's first frame. And the problem with that is that we're calling this method on the setter function, which might be called before the first frame, and that might cause Godot to freak out. And to prevent that, we're gonna check for engine.isEditorHint. And this just ensures that whatever is under this if statement will only run if we are in the editor and not the game itself. Now before we can do anything with our grid map node, we need to get a reference to it. And for that just control and drag it into the script editor. And I'm also going to set its type to grid map. And we're going to use one of the functions available in the grid map class called setCellItem. And I'm going to control click it to open the documentations. And the explanations are easy enough to understand. It takes a position and an index, and will set the cell in that position to the given item index. And if you pass in a negative index, it will clear that cell. And optionally, you can also pass in an orientation as well. Also, if you're confused as to which index points to which item, you can simply open your mesh library and check them there. So in our case, the border tiles are in the index 3. So let's say the border size is set to
Can we rename this? Okay, I wish there was a more clear naming convention here.
In this case, we would be allowed to draw in a 4x4 square with indexes ranging from 0 to 3. But the borders surrounding that would go from -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Or in other words, from -1 all the way up to the border size itself. So knowing that, we can jump back into scripting. So instead of this, we're gonna write for I in range -1 and border size +1, and this iterates from -1 to border size, as explained previously. Then gridmap.setCellItem, and we're gonna pass vector 3i, I, 0, and -1, and then as the item index, we're gonna
Okay. Let me just double check that. I think the I stands for integer. Okay, it's integer. Got it.
pass in 3. So save the script. And because we took an already reference to our grid map node, we need to actually close and reopen this in once again in order for it to work properly. So do that, and now as you can see, when I change the border size, the northern edge of our border is going to change accordingly. Now for the remaining edges, duplicate this line 3 times and change the position values like I do. I could spend time explaining what each of these lines do, or which edge is which, but honestly I can't be fucked, I'm sorry. And really there's nothing to be understood here anyway, it's just a matter of trial and error. And now as you can see, it works, but it kinda draws over itself, so we're going to clear the grid map before we draw anything in the visualize border function. And now as you can see, it works as intended. So now it's time to create our rooms. But before diving into the code,
Okay, so
3. So let's say the border size is set to 4. In this case, we would be allowed to draw in a 4x4 square with indexes ranging from 0 to 3. But the borders surrounding that would go from -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Or in other words, from -1 all the way up to the border size itself. So knowing that, we can jump back into scripting. So So instead of this in editor button, so in our case we are going to save this script into the same folder we created for our dungeon. Then simply this makes everything easier. And now we can start coding.
Great.
Press the attach script button, and we're going to save this script into the same folder we created for our dungeon tiles and stuff. And also,
Okay, we're just gonna get rid of that.
make sure that you have the what is it called? Empty script template selected, otherwise it's going to kind of populate our script with unnecessary bullshit we don't need yet. So click create, and now we can start coding. So the first thing we want to do is to add the tool keyword on top of our script, and this just basically lets us run the code in the editor rather than having to run the game every time we make a small change. Just makes everything easier. But before we can see its effect, we have to first close and reopen the scene.
Okay, so I'm not gonna close and reopen until we actually run the game. So
now let's make a new export variable and call it start. This is of type bool, and let's default.
Is that right? Yeah. So this is a okay, right? Export var. So this is a bit of a hack. So this checkbox, right? You can turn it on or off. And that's supposed to like run your thing. There's a lot of people who want a button that just says run script, but for now, the sort of the Boolean checkbox is what we have, and so that's what we're working with. I'm hungry today.
Hold it to false. We are also going to create a setter function for this variable. So set equals to set start.
Funk. Cannot use the setter because it's signature. Okay, wait, let's...
Currently this function doesn't exist, so we're going to define it right underneath it. So func set start value of type bool, and this is not going to return any.
Okay, so does it need to take in a value of type bool? When did that cat? I know. What? Oh, big fish. She's chirping again. What? Okay. She just wants to Say hi to me. Can I pick you up? No, you're not feeling it? Okay. What's up? What's up? Okay. You can hop up here. No problem at all. Come on. Here we go. Okay. Oh, she just wants to hang out, be my friend. Anyway, we are watching this tutorial and following it, so set start.
Then simply just set start to the given value. So to understand what...
Oop. Okay, start equals val. There we go.
What we're doing here, because this is an export variable, we can access it through the inspector. And every time we change its value, Godot is going to call the setter function. And what's so cool about this is that the setter function can also do other things that are not setting the variable to a new value. In fact, we can exclude this line altogether, and by doing so, whenever we toggle it from the editor, the value won't change.
Okay, so I don't fully understand what's going on here. So what's interesting is I think if I put the that'll give me an error. So it's just calling the name of the function rather than the actually calling it. It's just saying that the thing that sets it is this function, but we're not calling the function yet. I think that's kind of interesting.
But it will perform everything else, practically turning it into an in-editor button. So in our case, we are going to generate the actual dungeon whenever we toggle this value. So I'm just going to write generate here and very quickly define the function for it so it doesn't throw an error at me. And
okay, here we go. Okay, func. Okay, so we're just gonna get rid of that. Alright. Func generate. Oop. Colon.
Right. For now, I just simply print generating. And now if we toggle its value from...
Okay, yeah, now we're gonna do the same thing. Okay. Generating. Come on. Dot dot dot. There we go. I don't need a semicolon because I'm not working in Rust. And then if we run this, select current, sure, why not? Great, and if I click this, generating. Great. So that does exactly what we want. Cake, I just come up for you. Come over here and I'll bet you. She doesn't always want to negotiate.
The editor, it will just run the generate function for us.
By the way, this video has really good editing. I don't think I've said that before.
Similarly, we are going to create another export variable. So export var border size of type int and let's default.
Alright, great. So another export variable. Wait, is that after function? Are you? Okay. Or var
it to 20 and this
var to 20. Okay, I was going to default it to 0. That's
variable is also going to have a setter function.
Okay, cool. And then this whole set thing is new to me. Equals set border val. Okay, func set border val int, print it, and then just pass for now. Okay, so that's not complaining, which is nice.
So let's define that underneath it. And set border size to the given value.
Okay.
So now we want...
Right, so border size equals well, great. Border... Great.
On a live visualization of our border whenever the border size value is altered.
Where?
So
What's
this
my
time we
capture being
actually do
for?
want to set the variable to its newly given size. And after that, we are going to visualize the border, and like before, define the function below it. One thing to note is that in the visualize border function, we're going to be using a reference to our grid map node, which will be initialized on the game's first frame. And the problem with that is that we're calling this method on a setter function, which might be called before the first frame, and that might cause Godot to freak out. And to prevent that, we're gonna check for engine.isEditor hint.
Okay, great. Okay. The stream has not gotten a lot of traction. I do want to play with my little kitty cat. So in about 20 minutes, I'm probably gonna end stream and then work on this offline. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. Some of my Game Go streams like do well, and some of them just like no one comes to. Whatever. I think this